What's a ham radio?
The Cadillac of ham radios.
Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another episode of Ham Radio, a Stranger Things podcast. We've got a great episode for you today as usual, but first, we have a little housekeeping to take care of, and I'm going to turn it over to Jasmin to let you know where you can find us on social media and where you can listen to the podcast.
Thanks, Ashley. You can find us on Instagram at Ham Radio Media, all one word, on Twitter at HamThrow, on YouTube at Ham Radio Media, or using our handle HamRadio1983. We also have a Discord you can join, which is linked in the description of this episode. If you have a fan theory or question you want to share, you can email us at hamradiomedia@gmail.com. Ashley also has a fanfic on AO3 entitled Stranger Things College, which is also linked in the description. The podcast is available on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and much more. If you like the show, please consider leaving us a rating or review. We have a lot of totally tubular stuff coming up, so be sure to follow us on social media to keep up with the podcast and all of our new content.
So welcome back to another episode of Ham Radio Stranger Things podcast. We are back with a super special episode. Now, unless you live under a rock, that being Skull Rock, you are probably aware of a small event that took place a few days ago. I am, of course, referring to the presidential election. So today we will be talking about the 2024 presidential election. I'm kidding. We're not going to be actually talking about that. We are going to talk about Stranger Things Day. But Jasmin and I are not alone in today's recap of the most popular, most infamous day in Stranger Things fandom. We are joined today, and we're pleased to have Meghan from the Skull Rock broadcast. Her partner in crime over there, Stacy, unfortunately could not be with us due to illness. So Stacy, if you're listening to this, we are sad that you couldn't make it, but we understand and we hope you feel better soon. So Meghan, welcome to the Ham Radio podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing pretty good.
Awesome. All right. So before we really get into the recap itself, what we always like to do here on the podcast is when we have guests join us, we kind of like to welcome you into our show and for you to kind of tell the people a little about yourself and your show. But before we do that, we're going to kind of give you a little icebreaker question to, get you settled in.
Sounds good.
Alrighty. Okay, so pop quiz. What do you like better, pancakes or waffles?
Okay, so this is a difficult question because I like both a lot. And I am going to probably go with waffles, but not Eggo waffles. A nice Belgian waffle. But pancakes are so versatile. You can have so many different kinds of pancakes. So I do really love pancakes. I love breakfast in general. I always have to have savory eggs and potatoes at breakfast, but then also either pancakes or a waffle on the side if I'm going out to eat for breakfast. So difficult answer, but I'm going to go waffles. 11 would be proud.
Yes, she would.
I'd say, I kind of feel a similar way. I'm a pancake person. I'm a chocolate chip pancake person, but I do also enjoy Eggos. I do also enjoy my Eggos. So I'd say I've had to choose pancakes, but I also do enjoy an Eggo waffle.
Yes, I love both. I do like blueberry pancakes. My pancakes, I like, the fancier stuff, the chocolate chips, put stuff in them. But my go-to is always really an Eggo waffle. A couple years ago at work, one of my coworkers had brought a waffle maker, and I accidentally put a little bit too much of the batter in there, and it kind of overflowed, and they were all laughing at me and stuff. And I was like, look, I eat Eggo waffles, okay? I'm not a trained professional waffle maker. I just pop them into the toaster. So please don't touch.
That's so funny. Yeah. I think it's because I can make pancakes at home. Like, I'm not like a great cook, but I can do a decent pancake. And I love chocolate chip pancakes. I love blueberry pancakes. But if I'm going out and somebody else is cooking for me, that's why I feel like I would want a waffle, and I don't have a waffle maker at home. But I was surprised at how much I enjoyed the Eggo waffles when I got like the Stranger Things boxes that they had. So yeah, they're all good.
Yeah, I had a roommate who had a waffle maker, and she would actually make waffles all the time. Then she would freeze them and then like reheat them when she wanted them, which I thought was clever. Um, but yeah, I sometimes I'll have waffles when I'm going out to a restaurant. I was once visiting a friend, and we went to this really fancy place, and they had like different like toppings, like syrups for the waffles. Like it was like Belgian waffles, and I got like what was it? I think one was like lavender, vanilla, and then like a chocolate one. It was like super fancy. So something like that, I'm like, okay, I'll take a waffle. But I find most restaurants, if you just do like a classic, like pancake, that tends to be my go-to. Alrighty. So when did you begin watching Stranger Things, and like how did you get into the show?
Okay, so I love talking about this, but I've watched it since the very beginning, since 2016 when it came out, but I was a super casual fan. I watched season 1 when it came out, didn't really think about it until season 2 came out, watched that. There was a brief time after season 2 where I remember chatting about it with some friends and trying to get some other friends to watch it, but then kind of forgot about it, didn't think about it much. Season 3 came out, watched it, loved it, and then I didn't really think about it much at all. So I didn't really, leading up to season 4, I wasn't really paying much attention, so I wasn't really aware that it took a long time, because I knew it took a little bit longer than between the other 2 seasons, or the other 3 seasons. But when season 4 came out, I remember coming home, sitting down, opening Netflix, and I had just been watching, I think, The Vampire Diaries for like a little bit before that, and had gotten really into it and just binged all of the seasons and all of the spinoffs, and then started it again from the beginning. And I needed something else to watch. So I was like, oh, good, Stranger Things is back. I can watch this. And I didn't binge it all at one time. I pretty much spread it out over a few nights and watched 1 or 2 episodes each night. And that was volume 1, right when it came out. So like the week it came out. And then I was super excited for volume 2. I was like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. The 7th episode like blew my mind. And when volume 2 came out, I don't know, I think like it did something to my brain chemistry. It like broke my brain. So I just wanted to rewatch the whole show from the beginning. So I watched like from season 1 all the way through a couple times, and I was like really into like Steve's character development from season 1 after everything that happened in season 4, and just all the other storylines too. But watched season 4 on a loop, or watched the whole show on a loop, then was watching just season 4 on a loop a few times, and just for some reason got really obsessed with it. And I was also really into Joseph Quinn as Eddie Munson, so I was determined to meet him if I could, which kind of goes into like meeting Stacy, but I don't know if you want me to go there yet or if you want me to pause because I'm talking a lot. Okay, so I actually met Stacy on Instagram, and I had decided, I think it was like September, to make like an Instagram fan account. I had a Bookstagram where I like talked about books for a while, and I was like obsessed with reading books and read like 60 books in 2022, I think. And then I like was, I don't know, that's just how my brain works. Like when I am into something, I do it and like go all in. So I made an Instagram for like my Stranger Things obsession and Joseph Quinn and all of that. So that's when I met Stacy, when I made that Instagram. And then I went to fan expo in Philadelphia and was going to meet Joseph Quinn there. And I knew Stacey was going to be there and a couple other people I'd met on Instagram. And I met Stacey in person for the first time at that fan expo. And then we just hit it off, and it was just so easy to talk to her about Stranger Things. And that was kind of like the little seeds of our podcast.
Oh, wow. You've got us beat. We've never met each other in person because Jasmin lives in Canada and I live in Georgia. So it's maybe one day it'll be in the cards. We can meet halfway in like Virginia.
You should probably specify that you live in Georgia, USA, and not Georgia, the country.
Oh, yeah. The state of Georgia, not the country.
I think you might be able to tell from your accent that you live in Georgia.
Thank you.
State.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Stacey lives in Massachusetts and I live in Maryland. So
okay.
We both met in Philly, which was a little bit like halfway, closer to me probably. But then we've met in person 2 other times. So I went again to Philly and we both stayed with a mutual friend that we've also met on Instagram. And we went to see A Quiet Place day 1 when it came out. So that was the second time we met in person. And then obviously we were just together a couple weeks ago in person for something pretty cool.
Yeah. You want to tell everybody where you were?
Yes, because I'm never going to stop talking about it ever. But if you know me, you know where I was. But if you don't know me, then we were in Georgia, Ashley's home state.
So I live a good like hour and a half from Jackson, Georgia, where that con was held. I unfortunately was not able to attend because I just did not purchase tickets because that happened was right after the hurricane came through, and so that week I was still putting the pieces back together of my life and learning to live with power again. So I did not go, but I did see a lot of coverage and stuff, and it seemed like a very fun event. And that's what I was like. I really hated that I was not able to go because they had all the big cast members were there, which is usually kind of difficult for them to do, especially with Millie. It's kind of hard to, get them all together, I guess, because they're filming still. But yeah, I mean, how was that for you guys?
It was super cool. So yeah, we're bummed that we didn't get to meet you there, and I hope everything's okay after the hurricane, because I know that was a big thing for the state and surrounding states too. But we had a great time. It was just amazing to meet so many cast members. Like you said, obviously our favorite to meet was Joe Keery, and he was fantastic and just the kindest, most attentive person that you could meet at a convention like that. We actually have done a few podcast episodes with the owner of the convention company, Alexis, who owns Epicons, and she said that he's one of the top people that they've ever had at their conventions, with just being so attentive and responsive and connected to everybody that was meeting him. So it was super impressive. I'm just an even bigger fan of his now. But I mean, we got to meet Gaten, Caleb, Noah was there, Millie, a lot of the main kids, obviously, and then some other people that were kind of surprising that it was really fun to meet were Amy Beth McNulty. It was her first con ever, and she was super excited, and we're thinking that maybe Vicky might have a bigger role in season 5, so that was really cool. Mason Dye, who played Jason, was such a cool guy, so that was pretty cool. And I mean, Charlie and Natalia were there. I did a meet and greet with Natalia, and she was super sweet. So overall, it was just a super fun weekend. It was amazing to be able to meet so many of the cast, and then just meeting all of the other fans and being in Jackson where they filmed the show was a really cool experience. So we've talked a lot about it on our podcast, so I don't want to ramble on your podcast about it, but we really loved it.
That's awesome. And I can definitely see like Joe Keery being the most popular one there. Like he always just seems so personable anyway.
He absolutely was. Yeah, he was amazing.
Yeah, you hear stories about him about how like he, back when he was in school being like, yeah, like he looks like he'd be such a jerk because he's so good looking and like, and then you meet him and he's like, oh wow, you're actually the nicest guy. Like, oh my gosh. And that's exciting about Amy Beth having a bigger role. I mean, to be honest, I figured she would because, so a little bit of insider baseball here. But when my best friend and I finished watching season 4, we were both surprised she didn't have a bigger role, because she was the lead in Anne with an E. So like one of the Anne of Green Gables, series. And so up here in Canada, like she's pretty big. So we were pretty shocked that she didn't have a bigger role. Because we're like, she's Anna Green Gables. Like she led her own show that wrapped up just before she got the role in Stranger Things. So our personal theory is that she was supposed to have a bigger role in season 4 and they ran out of time, kind of like they did with Karen. Like it seemed like they were focusing on them and then it was just kind of like, it kind of fizzled. So that's our kind of theory on it. So it would be awesome to see her have a bigger role in season 5. And I think she will, just because I don't think they would have hired somebody who was like a lead on their own show if they were not intending to use them in a more leading role. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's super awesome. I saw some of the photos and stuff she posted and like it seemed like she had a really good time. And her and Maya Hawke are always so cute together.
Maya was incredible, and yeah, they're super sweet together. And Amy Beth was just, I added a photo with her super last minute, and she was literally hugging everyone who came in to get a photo with her, and just the sweetest person, and seemed like she was having such a good time. So that was really, really cool.
Oh, that is so sweet. That's just the sweetest. Okay, so you touched on this a little bit, but when did you start your podcast and why?
Okay, so yes, I mentioned it a little bit. The seeds of the podcast were at the convention in Philly. So after that, Stacey and I talked a couple more times, and I was just like, Stacey, it's really easy to talk. We really love the show, and do you want to start a podcast with me? So I would never have done that by myself. I think it would take a really brave person. I know, Ashley, you started this podcast by yourself, and I think you're super brave for that because I feel like I could never do that. But Stacey has been the most incredible podcast partner, and we just have a blast talking to each other. We would basically do this even if nobody was watching or listening, I guess, because it's a podcast. But it's like just chatting with a friend every week about Stranger Things, and it's a blast. So I love her so much. We have a great time. We started officially the beginning of the year. So our first episode came out like New Year's Day. We recorded the first couple episodes. We're both teachers, so we recorded them over winter break last year, and then basically have had at least one episode almost every week. I think we've only taken like 2 or 3 weeks off the whole year. So it's been a wild ride. We're both super busy, and this is just been a blast this year. So yeah, we've had a really great time with it. And we've gotten through, we don't just do recap episodes, we do other topics as well, but we've gotten almost through season 2 doing actual like rewatch recap episodes. So it's funny because we were kind of stressed out about trying to get all 4 seasons done before season 5, and I don't know if we will or not, but we have plenty of time, so we probably will at this point. I guess when we finally get a release date, we'll have a little bit more of like crunch time of trying to get it all in so that people can rewatch before they watch season 5, but we'll see. So it's just been a blast.
That's super awesome. And it's like, it's awesome when you find someone who's like easy to talk to that you can do this with. I think that's probably one of the top things you need if you're going to do a podcast with somebody is, someone that's easy to talk to that makes it feel like easy to do. So that's super awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Yeah, and I, like you said, I did this one by myself for like maybe 2 years, and that was fun and all, but you can only talk to the wall so much, and not have any feedback while you're recording, and sometimes it's kind of awkward. Um, so it's great to be able to talk to Jasmin when we're recording and all that, and not that we agree on everything, but it's still good to bounce theories off of each other, and because everyone has their own opinions and thinks differently, so it's always good to kind of hear what someone else thinks on something, and it's fun to go in it with a partner, especially with everything that goes into a podcast like social media and editing and all that. It can be a lot if you just do it on your own. So it's always great if you can get a co-host or a podcast a partner to help you make something that you enjoy doing. So we're going to change gears now and go into our Stranger Things Day 2024 recap. So I think the best way to start it off with is kind of going through in some preliminaries and kind of discuss what our predictions / hopes were going into Stranger Things Day. And Meghan, since you are our guest, we'll go with you.
So I have to say that this year I was probably, I want to say, the least excited about Stranger Things Day as the past 3 years. So like since I've been getting into Stranger Things Day, I feel like the past 2 Stranger Things days I was a little bit more excited, and I think the reason is because it's Stranger Things Day every day for me ever since we started this podcast. So it was exciting that it was coming up, but it was not really that special because I'm always talking about Stranger Things, thinking about Stranger Things, doing things related to Stranger Things. So the one year where on Stranger Things Day I got to go see like the last 2, like volume 2 of season 4 in the movie theater, that was really exciting and something cool to do on Stranger Things Day a couple years ago. I feel like there was some fun stuff last year for Stranger Things Day also, but this year I was not as excited as I have been in the past, and I was not really sure that we would get much, so I was trying not to get my hopes up. We were maybe thinking that there might be a teaser, but we literally had just been there in Jackson and knew that they're still filming, and like have heard rumors that they're still filming into January and things like that. So I feel like there's still a lot for them to do. So I was kind of skeptical that we would get a trailer. I feel like they're not necessarily ready for that. So I was excited for Stranger Things Day and wondering what they were going to give us, and always love celebrating the show, but I didn't want to get my hopes up too much, and I'm kind of glad that I didn't get my hopes up too much because it is cool. Everything we got was really cool, but I feel like if you were excited for a trailer, then you might have been disappointed.
Yeah, I was, Meghan. So thank you for holding up that mirror. I'm kidding. No, but yeah, I like for this one, I guess it's been such a very busy year for me at work and everything in general, and with this and my own audio drama series and all that. It's like it just came up all of a sudden, and I really hadn't really been paying that much attention to like the fanfare and all that leading up to it. But I learned a long time ago to not get my hopes up for any of the stuff anymore. But I was hoping for at least a little 10-second trailer or teaser of some kind, because I'm like, well, I remember when they were filming season 4 and we had like 4 teasers by this point in the filming of that season. And I was just thinking, like, we know we're already editing and stuff already and doing VFX, so why not? But I don't know. They've obviously made it very clear that 2025 is going to be the year we're gonna get all that. But yeah, my hopes and predictions were quite low this year. I was like, as long as it's just at least something interesting and just something that will quench my thirst for content, I will be satisfied.
Yeah, I'd say my expectations were kind of, not super high, but not super low, kind of somewhere in the middle. Because I think if we hadn't gotten as much behind the scenes content as we have, I've been following along with that week by week. So we've gotten a lot of behind the scenes content already that we didn't get for the previous seasons. I mean, in previous seasons, that stuff didn't drop until after the season had come out. So I think because of that, I didn't feel like we were being, cheated or anything. I felt like we've gotten so much of this. So I knew they were going to do something, but, what we were going to get based on what they'd already filmed or what they were willing to share with us, like, that's always the question. I will say I like the way that they did it compared to last year, because I felt like last year we all kept waiting for something, and they waited until like the end of the day to drop the first episode title. So it felt a bit frustrating where like it built up and built up and built up and built up, and then it was a bit of a letdown because all we got was an episode title. Versus this year, I think probably because they saw the reaction to that, they flipped it, and so the first thing they dropped was the episode titles. And then, with that we got the, the release and the confirmation of the time jump, and then from there we got the behind the scenes photos and the tour. So I think flipping that was a good decision on their part, because then we got something good like right away. So people didn't feel like they were, they were cheated, or like you weren't like waiting with bated breath all day for like one tiny thing. So I think that was a good call on their part, and I like that they dropped that right away, because then people had something to, dissect and kind of speculate on right away. Although I did think it was a bit weird. There were some tweets that they put out where it seemed like they were going to do like a rewatch of like episode 1 like they had last year. And I don't know if that didn't show up on my feed, but it seemed like they were going to do, and then they didn't. So I did think that was a little bit odd.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I don't really follow things on Twitter too much, mostly on Instagram, and I was actually at work all day too and very busy, so I told Stacy if there was like anything big to text to me, but I was going to just wait until the evening to come home and like react to everything. So I kind of got it all at one time in the evening after work when I came home. So I kind of probably missed some things, but I know that there was a lot of like new merch announcements also, and just other creators and stuff that I follow were making cool content for the day as well. So along with like the official stuff, that was kind of fun. But I do agree with you that we've gotten so much throughout the year, because we talk about that on our show every week, like just different filming updates, and we typically have something to talk about. So I feel like that's not been the case in the past, and it's been cool to just get things throughout the year, like you said, from the behind the scenes standpoint.
Yeah, and it was also kind of cool that they just randomly dropped content this year. And like I know last year they had made like posted a graphic on their social media a few days prior to Stranger Things Day, like the the agenda for the day, and so therefore people were freaking out online because they did not do that. And then it was all this big, I guess, question of, well, if it's because of the election and all that, they didn't want to do that. Like, I don't know. I think if anything, with the reason they didn't do that was, I feel like because part 2 of Outer Banks season 4 dropped on the November the 7th, and that's like the penultimate season of their show, and maybe Netflix didn't want to overshadow that with Stranger Things Day. I don't know. I will say though that this year it did kind of feel a little bit weird compared to Stranger Things days in years past. But I mean, I'm still, at the end of the day, at least glad we have something to talk about. that kind of, gives us an idea of what the season could be about. But yeah, it's like you said, Megan. I mean, they've been giving us content pretty much all year. It's just evidently not what a lot of people wanted, at least for Stranger Things Day. So I think that's a good segue into what we actually did receive this year for Stranger Things Day. So we got the episode titles, confirmation of season 5 releasing in 2025, though we do not know exact time frame for that, like summer, fall. We don't know that other than just 2025. Then we got a confirmation of an in-show time jump to fall of 1987. And then with some more behind-the-scenes photos, but this time, I'm proud to say, some high resolution. They almost look like production still photos. And then a tour of Castle Byers from Will Byers himself, Noah Schnapp, the upside down version. And yeah, that was that was pretty much it. So I think we'll start with the episode titles first. And Megan, if you would like to read the titles out for us.
Okay, cool. So I was actually kind of excited about the episode titles, but I'm sad that they got leaked beforehand, and I still need to kind of dive into them a little bit more because I was trying not to pay too much attention to them when they were unofficial chapter titles and not the official ones. And I know they're kind of like switched up a little bit from what originally got leaked, because on our podcast, we try not to talk about like leaks and spoilers. And so I haven't really gotten a chance to kind of look into all of the research that people have done about like theories based on these chapter titles. So I'm excited that I can finally do that. But let me go ahead and read them for everyone. Okay, so episode 1 or chapter 1 is The Crawl, which we have known about for quite a while now. Episode 2 is The Vanishing of ... That was pretty cool that it's still kind of blurred out and we don't know, because I don't know, I was just shocked when we didn't actually get who it was. Episode 3, chapter 3 is The Turnbow Trap. Chapter 4, Sorcerer. Chapter 5, Shock Jock. Chapter 6, Escape from Camazotz. Chapter 7, The Bridge. And Chapter 8, The Right Side Up.
Yeah, I have to say, when it was released and they had the graphic do the thing where it kind of like it kind of like fizzled, and we didn't find out who had vanished. Like, they kept that a secret. I thought that was probably my favorite part. I was like, oh, someone is vanishing, but we're not going to tell you who it is.
I agree. It was my favorite part.
I thought that was pretty cool. And I know what you mean about, so I had seen some stuff had been linked. I didn't read any of it though. Like I saw a little bit of that and I just, scrolled away. So I only started doing like a deep dive once the official titles have been released, because I try to stay away from like leaks or paparazzi stuff as much as possible. And we only talk about, like official things on the podcast just because not everybody wants spoilers. And there's a couple of things that kind of spoiled for us that we happened to see that later came out in like official photos. So I also feel like that's maybe influencing what they're doing, because they know the stuff is being leaked online. And so, they're trying to counteract it a little bit. To be like, okay, well, we were going to keep this under wraps, and some paparazzi took a picture or somebody leaked it. So, now we kind of have to address it, which is like good and bad in a way. But yeah, I'm really excited about these titles. I think it's super interesting, and it's a good example of like, they gave us, a little bit, but not the full picture, which seems to be their marketing strategy as of late.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you're right that they know that things are going to be leaked or people are going to see things and it's going to be posted. So they've tried to kind of stay on top of that and stay ahead of it a little bit and just give us little pieces of things throughout the year. And I I agree with that.
Yeah, I think they're trying to, balance that, I think is what they're trying to do, and also try to keep the show top of mind for people, which I think is also why they're doing so many collaborations for the merchandise, to try to keep the show top of mind, because it was supposed to have, come out by now. So trying to keep it top of mind for people, because the wait for it to actually be released is so much longer than they anticipated. So without further ado, I'm going to go into kind of my thoughts on each of these titles. So first we have The Crawl. I still think this has something to do with Vecna and or maybe monsters or things, crawling out of the Upside Down. That's kind of the original vibe I got, and I still get that vibe. I think for the Vanishing of, I think it's probably going to be Holly Wheeler, because they recast the actress who's playing her, and they seem to be doing a lot of filming with her. We saw her a bunch in the teaser trailer. And if they were just going to keep her as a side character, I don't think they would have recast her. And longtime listeners will know that, I've talked about my theory about how I thought Holly was going to play a bigger role, that they've always kind of hinted at her being aware of more and knowing more than her family is aware of, all the way back in season 1, where the joke is that, the Wheeler family, they're all kind of oblivious to a certain extent about certain things. Like, they all have things that they're like really on the ball with, and they're really oblivious about other things, but Holly doesn't seem to share that quality. And so I always kind of wondered if there was something to that, and I think this is it. I think that, she knows more than kind of her family is aware of, and I think it's going to come, the fact that her siblings and mom and dad can be kind of oblivious to things is going to kind of come back to bite them when they realize she knows more than they've realized, and there's stuff going on that they're not aware of. And I think if it is Holly, or a member of the Wheeler family, I think that would kind of explain why the older teens are back in town. I'll get into that later, but I think those two things are definitely connected. I don't really have any thoughts on the turnbow trap. I'm not sure what that's referring to, other than maybe it's something from D&D, or maybe it's like a play on something from D&D that they're getting into. I think the sorcerer to me is pretty obvious. It's going to be something about Will and Will the Wise. I know people have joked, like, wouldn't it be funny if it's about something completely different? And it could be, but I feel like that's got to be it. And maybe we might get something about his time in the Upside Down, or flashbacks, or something specific. For Shock Jock, I think it's either about Jimmy Fasthandsley, the one we got the poster of, the guy that's like the disc jockey at the radio station, or it's got something to do with Dustin, since he seems to be the group's connection to the radio station, based on the behind-the-scenes pics we've gotten so far. So I feel like it's got something to do with one of them or both. For the escape of Camazotz, I think it's either got to be like escaping from the lab, or maybe Vecna's lair, or maybe it's a military base. I get the impression they're using D&D terms, or things they've come up with in their gameplay to talk about what's going on, which that's something they've done going all the way back to season 1. For the bridge, to me, I'm wondering if it's maybe like a bridge between worlds. I think I feel like this one's got to have like a multi or double meaning to it. And I love that they chose the right side up for chapter 8, because it feels like, it's coming full circle. It's the return to Hawkins. It's the end of the journey, and I felt like they had to use that terminology at some point to describe something. So those are my thoughts so far. I'm sure I'll have more in the future. Ashley, do you want to get into your theories and predictions as to what these titles mean?
Yeah, so I think I'm kind of in alignment with both of you on some of your predictions. I think the crawl is either referring to a dungeon crawl from D&D, or like Vecna literally crawling from his hole or wherever he is. Because the way I kind of read the first two chapter titles, it's like you have the crawl and then someone vanishes, and so that kind of has me thinking, okay, well, what if it's Vecna in the crawl? He's at the end, we see him crawling from somewhere, like, oh, he's back, and then he takes whoever the name is that's blanked out in the chapter 2 title, and then the chapter 2 title is all about, like, them being missing and all that. And I feel kind of the same way about, like, the bridge. You could easily kind of put those two titles together, the bridge and the right side up, and literally go the bridge to the right side up. That's kind of how I read it. I've seen a lot of theories about the bridge being like the bridge between worlds, which I feel like would make a lot of sense. I think that Holly Wheeler, possibly Karen, but I lean more towards Holly being the blanked out name in Chapter 2's title. A lot of it being based on the behind the scenes teaser. We see her like, with the lights flashing and stuff, which, as we know, is never a good sign on the show. Yeah, I think the only other real thing I had really to say, other than the right side up, I love it as the series finale title. Like Jasmin said, it's like, oh, this really is coming full circle. And in season 1's finale, we had the upside down, and this one, it's the right side up. And so I think it's a very appropriate, perfect title for the ending of this show. But other than that, the only thing I really will say that I find very interesting is that the titles for chapters 4, 5, and 6 do not begin with the. Like, it's just sorcerer, shock jock, escape from Camazotz. I wonder if there's if there's something to that. I feel like there is, because this is Stranger Things. They never really do anything, in my opinion, that doesn't have another meaning to it. So I find that very interesting, and it does make me want to really watch these episodes even more, to wonder, like, even the smallest little details of not adding an article in front of some of these chapter titles really has me guessing. One last thing I will say, though, and this is kind of a confession, because Jasmin, I don't think I've told you this, but I have told some other people that I accidentally did see the leaks of the episode titles for 1 through 6 because it popped up in our Twitter feed, and I accidentally was just scrolling through, and it actually popped up, and I clicked on it because I kind of thought it was, at first I thought it was legit, and then when I realized it was not from any official accounts, I thought, oh, well, there's probably nothing really to this, because this happens all the time. I mean, ever since I've been a part of the fandom, in between seasons when they've been filming, this happens a lot. And also I was like, these don't really seem like Stranger Things titles. I think the only one that really at that time stood out to me was Shock Jock, because it reminded me of Holly Jolly. And so I kind of just put it out of my mind a little bit, and was like, until they drop the official announcement of the chapter titles, I'm not believing this. And well, as we know, that they were right. The only thing, I think that was different was they completely blanked out the name, which I'm not going to say anything here, because again, we don't like to do leaks or spoilers. But if you know, you know. But yeah, and like you were saying, Meghan, at first on Stranger Things Day, outside of the final 2 chapter titles, it was a little hard for me to feel like, yay, because it turns out what I had accidentally saw on Twitter did turn out to be true. And so I was a little bit bummed, but over the last few days, getting in preparation for this episode, and just really kind of studying them out and going through theories and stuff, I have gotten a little bit more excited. Especially because at least the last 2 chapter titles were not leaked. So at least we had that. But Meghan, what were your theories, thoughts on the meanings of these chapter titles?
Yeah, so I just had a few things to add. I really love your ideas. I have this kind of funny random connection with The Crawl, because we've known about that one for a while, and there's this really weird line that Steve says in season 4 where he talks about like crawling backwards as a child, and I've always kind of like thought about that scene when I hear the crawl, and like wondering if there's going to be a connection back to that, because I just felt like it was such a random thing for them to have written into the show without maybe like making a connection there. But I do think that Holly is going to be maybe playing a bigger role, like you've said. So I'm thinking and leaning more towards that being Holly as my prediction as well for the second one. I've seen some things with like a construction company, and I don't know why. I have to go back and look again, but I feel like the Turnbow thing might be connected to that. I think it was one of the like behind the scenes like billboard type things, but that's just the random thought I have with the Turnbow trap. The sorcerer, I know people are trying to find some way of like Eddie Munson possibly coming back, and personally I really did hope for that when I first finished season 4, and now I've kind of let go of any kind of hopes or expectations in that kind of like realm, just because again I don't want to be disappointed, and I think I'll be happy no matter what. But it is funny because I've seen people post about in the Puzzle Tales game that they have that you can play, that Stranger Things, there's an Eddie character that is a sorcerer, so that's kind of an interesting connection. I don't really know about the shock jock, but I am super excited for there to be a radio station. I just think that whole theme of the show, because we've seen photos officially of the radio station set, is going to be pretty cool. So I'm excited for that. I have seen some random theories about the Camazotz thing being connected to bats. So I think it's definitely going to be something connected to the Upside Down. I love your theory about the bridge between worlds, so definitely going to go with that. And I'm really into the thing that Ashley said about it coming full circle with the right side up, because I think that's going to be kind of neat as well. So those are my things that I could add on to what you guys said.
Yeah, and that gets so interesting, Ashley, what you were saying about how the ones in the middle don't have the word the. I didn't notice that until you brought it up. So I wonder if this, because I'm just looking at it in order, and I'm wondering if the difference here is between the right side up and the upside down. Like maybe the first 3 take place in the right side up, and then the ones in the middle take place in the upside down, or some other dimension or thing, or there's some kind of something to do with the gameplay, and then the last 2 they're bridging back into the right side up. Like, if we're talking about right side up versus upside down, where the characters are physically, that would maybe explain why the 3 in the middle don't have the word the, because I always have the word the. And you're right, these 3 don't, but they're right in the middle, so I feel like the placement and the fact that that's not there has to mean something. Like, I think either they're in the upside down for those 3 episodes, or it's got something to do with the gameplay that they're basing this off of, but it's got to mean something. I think that there's got to be a break story-wise between, like, chapter 3 and then what we have in the middle when they come back on chapter 7. I feel like maybe it's like 3 acts, like 3 different acts, like, you have 3 different acts in a play. There's got to be something to that, because just looking at them again, yeah, there's got to be something to the fact that we don't have the word the, and then we do again at the end. So I think you're onto something there, truly.
With that, I think I've heard people talk about how Netflix is splitting up their shows into multiple parts. Like we got volume 1 and volume 2. So I wonder if those could be the 3 different parts, and we get like the first volume 1 is the first 3, volume 2 is the next 3, and then volume 3 is the final 2 episodes.
That could be it, but I hope it's not. If we gotta wait for 3 different volumes, you could be right, but I kind of hope you're not. Waiting for volumes 1 and 2 was hard enough. I think because the show never used to do that. Seasons 1, 2, and 3 just dropped, and they were much shorter. The episodes were like 30, 45 minutes. And then season 4 came, and it was like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. There's 2 different volumes. You could be right, but I kind of hope you're not.
Yeah. Sorry if I am.
Hey, it's not your fault. And that's our show. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe and tell your friends. Our theme music is provided by Neon Nights. Thank you for listening to this episode of Ham Radio, a Stranger Things podcast. Please join us next time, same dial, same time.
Over and out.